CDKN has been supporting climate-compatible development in Latin America and the Caribbean for almost 2 years now. Pippa, what does it take to achieve climate-compatible development?
In the region Latin America and the Caribbean, what we've seen, it needs vision. It needs long-term thinking, and it needs difficult political decisions. And for that, the CDKN program sees that the way we can help decision makers and policy makers get to that is, one, through the power of example. I'm sitting there and I want to know who has done this before and how did they do it. And I need a change. I need a change in the quality and the relevance of the information that I'm being given to be able to take that decision. And I need a change in political will and commitment to take this out of the environmental sector and make this critical to development planning. And I need mobilization and coordination of stakeholders. I need voice in this. How have we done that as CDKN over the last 2 years, and how are we planning to do it in the future? Quito is a good example. Quito in 2009 was the first city in Ecuador to come up with its climate change strategy. But how do you get policy to action? It knew that vulnerability was critical, looking at who are the most vulnerable and how are we going to enhance their adaptive capacity and reduce that vulnerability with extreme events happening more in Quito. A good study had been done on that, but as always, it lay on someone's desk. We're working with the Quito municipality across sectors and together with other stakeholders to now make that research into a vulnerability study which will inform the way decisions are made in the future. It's brought that research paper, the results of that research paper, out of a drawer, out from underneath a pile of papers on somebody's desk to inform decision making. And it was done with the help of examples from Asia, from 10 cities, mountain cities as well in Nepal, in how do you actually get vulnerability indexing into decision making by different parts of a municipality. That was the example. And now the information is being used to improve that initial study, but now it's part of the decision making process. In the Caribbean, CARICOM, 15 heads of state, politically approved a regional strategy for resilience. Donor community was there waiting with earmarked funds, but it wasn't specific enough, and it didn't say what each island state really needed and what were their priorities. CDKN has brought in international expertise about how you do an implementation plan and how you do a consultative process with 15 island states around that. The plan has now been endorsed, and we're talking about a change in commitment. One of the things that was said by the regional Caribbean Community Climate Change Centre was, for the first time, this is moved out of environment, and we have other key stakeholders in government talking about this as development. The implementation plan is now the one-stop mechanism for accessing donor funds earmarked for the Caribbean. It's now there. We've talked with all the multilaterals. They have that document in front of them, the implementation plan.
What are the big opportunities for climate-compatible development in Latin America and the Caribbean in the next decade?
One is, this has been called the Latin American decade. The economists term it as the Latin American decade. We have emerging economies, apart from Brazil, who are on strong development pathways, who are in their campaign pledges are talking about 6%, 8% growth, maintaining that, despite economic crisis in the world. What does it mean for those development pathways to reduce emissions? What does it mean for those development pathways to increase adaptive capacity within that? CDKN is about mitigation and adaptation and development. We're working with Peru and Chile in their planning process to look at long-term mitigation scenarios that incorporate adaptation. This is going to be critical for their development pathways. That's on the one side. On the other side, we have Central America. And Central America just had a press conference of all of the heads in Central America yesterday saying, recognize that in Central America, climate variability is now the biggest development issue for us. With the last tropical storm, we lost 2 billion across the region. El Salvador lost 40% of its crops. We're working with El Salvador in a pilot for the region to look at how you plan for climate change within a disaster risk management framework, but putting development at the center of that.